Most of us know someone whose life has been affected by a drunk driver. Unfortunately, my life has been affected by a drunk driver. Drunk driving is also known as alcohol-impaired driving, driving under the influence, and driving while intoxicated. According to Drunk Driving by Christine Halsenmer, the definition of drunk driving is by law, a driver is considered to be impaired by alcohol if his or her blood alcohol content is 0.08% or higher. A driver is any operator of a motor vehicle, including motorcycles, trucks, and passenger vehicles. According to drunk driving as a criminal offense, the history of drunk driving was said to begin in the 19th century. This was when railroads began disciplining their employees who operated their locomotives while being intoxicated. New York, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts were the first to adopt drunk driving laws shortly after the turn of the 20th century. New York outlawed drunk driving in 1910 and was the first state to do so. But due to them not having a limit on drunk driving, arrests were made solely on the officer's discretion. In the mid-1930s, all 48 states that were in the Union had adopted a drunk driving law. In 1930s, law officials did not believe that drunk driving was a real issue or any kind of concern. In 1939, Pennsylvania was the first state to link drunk driving to a blood alcohol content or a BAC. During the 1940s and 1950s, deaths from motor vehicle accidents increased significantly. This was when public awareness of the hazards of driving while intoxicated finally began to develop and the findings of traffic safety studies were published. During this time, police officers cited drunk drivers, typically parking their cars for them, and they either took the driver who had been drinking home or they called a taxi for them. During the 1960s, the numbers of drunk driving arrests increased as the federal highway funding became contingent upon state enforcement of DUI laws. In the 1980s, public attitudes toward drunk driving underwent a dramatic change when a 13-year-old, Carrie Leitner, was hit by a car driven by a drunk driver who was a repeat offender. Carrie's mother, Candace, started MAD, or Mothers Against Drunk Driving, to force tougher drinking driving laws. In 1982, there were 26,173 alcohol-related traffic deaths in the United States. Now you're probably wondering about the drinking and driving laws today. According to Christine Huelsmiller, every U.S. state has enacted a law making it illegal to drive with a blood alcohol content, or BAC, of 0.08% or higher. Also, each U.S. state has set the minimum drinking age to 21 years of age and has established a zero tolerance law that prohibits people less than 21 years old from drinking and driving. The majority of the zero tolerance laws set the drinking limit to a BAC of 0.02%. Drivers convicted of an alcohol-impaired driving faces a suspension of their license or a revocation of their license. She also said that those who refuse or fail a BAC test will have their license revoked immediately. There is a mechanism called the ignition interlock device, and this machine is linked to your car ignition, and it causes you to blow into the device before it lets you start your ignition. If you blow a 0.08% or above, this machine locks your ignition. Now, drunk driving is so important because of the effects alcohol has on your body. Christine writes that alcohol starts to affect your body at 0.02%, and this is approximately the amount of one beer. At 0.02%, effects include loss of judgment and having trouble to do two or more tasks at once, so multitasking. At 0.05%, A person is less alerted and coordinated, has trouble focusing, has trouble steering the vehicle, and is slower to respond to emergency driving situations. Mind you, this is still legal to drive. At a BAC of 0.08%, your muscle coordination is poor, the driver will have problems concentrating, problems controlling the vehicle, will have short-term memory loss, will have problems processing information, for example, like signal detection, and will show impaired reasoning and depth perception. At this BAC, it is now illegal for you to drive. At a BAC of 0.10%, the driver's reaction time and control deteriorates, thinking slows, and driving becomes even more difficult. At a BAC of 0.15%, he or she shows a major loss of balance, impaired processing of information, inattention, and little control of the vehicle. Now, some statistics are that according to drunk driving costs are soaring, more than 17,500 Americans lost their lives in a drunk driving accident in 1993, and another 1.2 million were injured, according to Mothers Against Drunk Driving. That is one death every 30 minutes and an injury every 26 seconds. In 1993, more than $23.1 billion went for medical care for survivors of drunk driving accidents. Another $5.4 billion was needed to repair property damage, and $17.6 billion was required to pay for fatalities. This includes their funeral costs, medical services spent on those who died, insurance, legal expenses, and productivity losses. According to the NHTSA, in 2014, there were 9,967 people killed in alcohol-impaired driving crashes, an average of one alcohol-impaired driving fatality every 53 minutes. In 2014, a total of 1,070 children, 14 and younger, were killed in motor vehicle traffic crashes. Of these 1,070 fatalities, 209 children, or 19% of the children, died in alcohol-impaired driving crashes. In the fatal crashes of 2014, the highest percent of drivers with a BAC of 0.8 or higher was for the ages of 21 to 24, making that 30% of the drivers. This was followed closely by 29% of the drivers being between the ages of 25 and 34 years old. Through statistics, it has shown that men are 4.5 times more likely to drive drunk than women. We all know of the common sense ways to prevent drunk driving. This includes walking to the bar, getting dropped off by a family member so you're forced to walk home, having a designated driver, or even calling a taxi. During the holidays, places like Martin Hardy and Mazzotti will provide a free cab ride home on Super Bowl Sunday, St. Patrick's Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, and New Year's Eve between the hours of 12 p.m. and midnight. All you have to do is call 1-800-529-1010 directly, and they will set you up with a free cab to your destination. I also know that kids learn about drunk driving before prom, and some schools like Saratoga High School does a reenactment. According to MAD, some suggestions for dealing with a drunk driver include inviting them to stay the night, having other people with you because it is harder for them to tell more than one people no. Try to get the person's keys. Explain to them that you care so you don't want them to drive. I tell my friends to call me at any time of the night so I can help prevent them from driving drunk. I am the one who offers to be the designated driver because a drunk driver destroyed my life. I've lived the vicious cycle of a night that a drunk driver took. Remember, it takes one time to take your life or the life of another human being. And to be honest, no life is worth your one mistake. Think of your future. Think of your date. Then think before making that fatal mistake. Do not drink and drive.